Perfect. So actually, that's the first thing I'm going to start with. So Community Level Up is a 501c3. It's pretty much what we do is we help members of the community reach the next level of success. So we, like things that I do, we go in schools, I mentor kids, we sponsor organizations, we run youth programs. If you are ever interested in starting up your own LLC, every member of our board runs their own LLC. So we kind of help people for free. We give you guidance that if you went out there in the world, you would have to pay for. If you're ever interested in investing, like some of the stuff I'll give you, if you look into some of the people that the information I'm giving you, they'll charge you like $3,000, $4,000 for it. I more look at it like I have 2 kids in this world. I have a 3-year-old and a 7-year-old. If I don't get out here and try to do some good and things around there, they're just going to be growing up into a world where a lot of terrible things are happening. So I'm just the kind of person that I just really love helping people. So that's why I do this for free. That's kind of why I teach, and that's kind of why I'm involved. So we're just a not-for-profit that helps members of the community reach the next level of success. Like my specialty is trading and basketball. So like you coaching basketball or trading stocks, I can help you out with. One of my other partners is he runs a music studio, and he's also a pastor in the church. So if you were into religion, I have another person I can pass you to. And one of my other members there, he is the head basketball coach at Ledger Girls Basketball, and he runs a mentoring company where he works with adults with development disabilities. So we kind of just between us all do things just to help the community out, and that's kind of what Community Level Up. Yeah, so I'm the president, and yeah, I started it as of last year. I graduated from Springfield College in 2009. I started teaching at St. Thomas More. St. Thomas More is a full-time boarding school where you're there all the time. So once I had kids, I really didn't want to always be at a prep school all the time. So I left. I used to direct a sports facility called Sports on 66. I have a degree in business and a degree in management. So I was a director of a sports facility while I was there. The guy that I worked for, I was not a fan of. Everything that he did not really benefit the community. So as of August 14, 2017, I left there, started up my own business called the Loyal Connection Sports Academy, where I offer sports at a high quality for a lower price. I started Community Level Up, where I teach the stock market, and I'm also a teacher. So I'm a math teacher, where now I'm getting back into the teaching thing. So just off of helping people is kind of where that came from, and a little bit about myself. So today what we're going to get into, we're going to talk about what the market is. The stock market is a place where you can buy shares of a business. So to make a long story short, in the way that I teach, I kind of put it in layman terms, the way that I understand it. I'll never be the guy that's going to teach you the dictionary, Webster form of it. I will point you to those people if you want to go get to them. I kind of weed through the information, and I'm just going to kind of present it to the way that I understand it the most, and that's just kind of the way that I talk, the way that I kind of am. So stock market is where you can buy a percentage of a business. One thing to be concerned about is if you ever own over 10% of a business, you are liable for the negative things that that business may do. So depending on when you're investing, I'm not sure how big you're going in, but sometimes like a lot of these penny stocks, which I'm involved with, a lot of them are a scam. I fully understand that, so I don't hold them long. But some people don't understand that, and some people come in and buy a large percentage of a business that is doing sketchy things. And if you are owning over 10% of it and say they are doing something sketchy like insider trading and releasing things of that nature, if they get taken to court, anybody with over 10% also gets taken to court. So keep that in mind when you're trading, where your numbers are. If you ever go over that 10% mark, you technically become a majority owner of that company, and you are liable for the negative things that they do. I never put myself in a situation to where I'm buying over 10%. The smallest company is like a $50 million company market cap. That would be like the smallest. 20 to 50 would be the smallest. So to get 10% of it, you would have to put a good amount into it. I'm not doing that at all, though. So there's 3 different types of exchanges that I focus on. You can literally, how deep you get into trading, you can trade all around the world. And there's some people that can trade 24 hours a day. There's always somewhere. I don't do it that much. I work with how's it going, stock market? Yes, come on in. It's all good. We just got started. So we just talked about what is a stock market, which is purchasing shares of a business. We never want to purchase more than 10% of that business total worth, because if you purchase more than 10% of a business total worth, you become a majority owner and you are liable for any negative things that may happen with that business. So those are just what we started with. Now, the three kind of exchanges I focus on, the NYSE, the NASDAQ, okay. Oh, perfect, there you go. The NYSE, the New York Stock Exchange, that's actually the oldest stock exchange. That's the largest one. I think, I don't know the exact number. It's kind of like around $1 billion, operate that throughout the day. That's the one that I mess with. The second one that I work with is the NASDAQ. The difference between the NYSE and the NASDAQ, the NYSE started back in the day where literally you had to pay like $500,000 to get a seat just to be sitting in that trading room. There's a ticker where something would come out with what that stock price was. You would grab that ticker, go bring it to another person, and that's how the stock prices were made. The NASDAQ, when they came out, that's kind of when the computer system, the internet age came out. The NASDAQ is all kind of computer. Everything is ran by computers. NYSE ran by people. NASDAQ kind of more ran by computers. Usually when you see like the stock market data breach in any kind of a way, it's usually always the NASDAQ because they are most susceptible to the hackers because they have everything online, to where the NYSE and also the Amex is a little more old school, where they don't do everything computers, but they still, everybody now kind of uses them. There's also something called the OTC, over-the-counter market, or the pink sheets, what they used to call it. I like to consider that the wild, wild west. I do not advise anybody trading OTCs until you at least put about a year or 2 years into learning the market and understanding it. The reason why I say that, the SEC regulates the NYSE, they regulate the NASDAQ, they regulate the Amex. So if they're doing any shady illegal activity, if they're insider trading things going on, they put that stock on freeze to help people out from losing money. So those companies that register on the NASDAQ, the Amex, or the NYSE, they have to be SEC regulated. Which we'll talk about in later classes, they have to make filings, they have to file their earnings on a consistent basis, and it has to be accurate with the information they put in there. When you trade over the counter, there is no SEC filings, there is no regulation. The OTCs is where you see a lot of the stocks of the 0.0005 are those real penny stocks. Those are not regulated. So I would advise, like, if you get into it, I would say at least 2 years of trading the other stocks. The reason why, literally, like, there's been stocks on the penny market that I've seen recently, like at 10:15 a.m., that stock is 0.0007, and at 11:30 a.m., that stock is at 3 cents, and it goes both ways. So it changes so quick that if you fully don't understand what makes it change, or you don't understand what makes the price move, it can really fool a lot of people in that market though. So I don't really teach going into the OCC that much. My main style is the NASDAQ, the Amex, and the NYSE. But I'll trade at the end of the class, I'll kind of share some things that I do inside of the OTC market. All right, so now I mainly teach about buying stocks. So I buy shares. When I buy a stock or a share, I own a percent of that company for the time that I have it, and then I sell it and I get rid of it. You also can buy options where you can kind of look down the road. So say I think ABC company in March of 2021, the stock price is gonna rise up by $3. I can put an option in. When I buy an option, I have to buy a minimum of 100 shares, but I get it at a premium price from the broker that I happen to be buying through. I can buy an option to kind of forecast what I think a price will be the day so if I put March 2022, whatever it happened to be, the day that I put out for the option on that day, if I bought 2 units, I would have 200 shares of stock at a very limited price. And if it went up like I thought it did, then I can sell those off and make money. The one downfall is it also is they don't always go the way you want it. And if it doesn't go the way you want, you can lose money with the option market. So I don't teach options at all. It is out there. If you ever have an interest in options, I can point you in the direction of somebody who does that.
That's the only thing you can lose is
the percent you put in there, yes. Yep. With that options, yep.
And you never had to buy a single share.
No, nope.
You only paid the option.
Yes, yep. I do know there's one guy, his name is Mel Kwan, he's from Chicago, if you Google it. When Apple recently just came out with their streaming service, I mean, turned $500 into like $48,000 with options. Majority of people don't happen like that. That's one guy, if you want to Google Mel Kwan from Chicago, he had a crazy flip on it. But like I can point you the direction of people, but I do not mess with the option game at all. So now we're going to talk about different types of trading. A day trade would consist of buying a stock and selling a stock within the stock market hours. The stock market is open from 9:30 to 4 p.m., but there also is a pre-market section from 8 a.m. to 9:29 a.m., and there is an after-hours section from 4:01 to 6 p.m. I do not advise trading much in the pre or in the after hours because all of the numbers and stuff we're going to learn about what makes this move and what you can read and find, they aren't calculated from pre and after. That's just a time where things can be traded, but the data, like there isn't, if you trade blindly, it's kind of gambling. I like to control my risk to my reward. I can't do that in pre-market, so I don't suggest that anyone really buying in the pre-market. So we talked about the time of the market. We talked about a day trade. Yes.
Are pre and post-market orders all market orders?
Well,
or can you specify the price?
I would never suggest anybody doing a market order. I would always say do a limit order. The reason for that is, which we're going to get deeper into this later, but like if you just put a market order, so say you saw a stock at $1.50 and you put a market order to buy 100 shares of that. That person selling you the shares, if you have a market order, can sell you that $1.50 stock for $1.75, for $2. They can fill it at wherever they want. When you use a market order, you let the market control what they sell it to you as. If you use a limit order, you will only pay a certain amount of money for that. And if it goes above that, then they will not purchase it for you. I only do limit orders. I only suggest limit orders. So like to say if I saw a stock at $1.50 and say that stock was moving fairly quick and I believe that it's going to go up to maybe $2, I might put my limit order in right at 155 or 160, a little bit higher. But a stock that's moving that quick, I saw it at 150, and if it does go up to the 250s, the minute I put my market order in, I could possibly get taken out for buying that at 250. And at that, when I first started, literally, I put my first $100 up. I thought I was buying something for $1. I actually got it at 150, and it crushed me. I had no idea. I don't even know what happened. It happened so fast and took so much of my money. They filled me at kind of the market order price, which was terrible. And the one thing about the market, there is no refunds. The market is people. If every time I make money, if you make money, somebody somewhere in this world loses money. And there is no refund at it. It happens very fast. The only thing we can control is how much we lose. So by always using a market order, controlling how much we spend on something, it helps us regulate how much we tend to lose. So yes.
Is there any other way to buy other than at market?
Limit, yes. You can buy it at the price that you want it at with a limit order. And then also there's something called a stop profit where say if you can't be at the market all the time, you can go into your whoever broker you go through, you can put in a limit order to buy X stock at $1. You can put in a stop profit saying when that stock gets to $1.05, sell all of my shares, or you can put a stop loss saying I bought it at $1. If this stock drops to this price, sell it before it goes any lower. I always suggest using them unless you can be directly at your computer and literally watch level 2 stuff, which we'll get into later, and everything that's happening. If you can't do that, I always suggest using a stop loss. One risk reward, which 3 weeks in, we'll talk all about risk reward. It gets deeper, but a general rule of thumb, you never really want to spend on a trade more than 1% of the capital that you have in. You never want to lose more than 8%. And with any trade that you make, you want to try to give yourself a risk reward of 1 to 3, meaning if I bought a stock let's say if I bought a stock at $1, if that stock, so if I bought a stock at $1, if it had the potential to going down to 90, only way I can get into it is it also has the potential of going up to 130. If it doesn't have that potential that I see off of me reading the charts of that 1%, that 1 to 3 ratio of loss to gain, it's not worth getting into the trade. One thing about the market is there's so many different companies out there, so many different stocks. Everybody can make money in a certain type of way off of any stock that's out there. It's your execution and when you get in and when you get out. It's not necessarily what the stock is and things of that nature. So that is much more important. So we talked about a day trade, buy and sell in the same 24-hour period. Swing trade would be anytime you hold something overnight, anywhere for weeks to months down the road. So day trade, buying and selling within the market period. Swing trade, the moment you hold a stock overnight is kind of considered swing trading. Swing and day is the main things I do. You can also go long, invest in the company where you put X amount of dollars into that company, let it sit for a while to see what that company makes. And there is also short sellers out there. So there's literally people out there that bank on these stocks going down, and you can buy shares of a stock at a lower price. And if it drops to that price, you can then sell it and make money with that. I do not short sell at all. The one thing with short selling is you have to I wouldn't advise short selling unless you have to have a margin account. The difference between a cash and a margin account, a bank will lend you a minimum of a $2,000 credit, meaning that you can make money off of that, you can lose money and be in the hole, or you can trade with just a cash account where it's all of your money that you put in there and that you lose. To short, you have to have a margin account, because if you say, if I thought X stock, if I thought it was going to drop from $1 to 50 cents, but in return it went from $1 to $5, I would then owe the brokerage that I have loads of money. Because of that whole factor, I do not mess with short sellers at all. But I'd like to teach what short sellers do, because you have to understand the different kind of people in the market in order to understand the ways that you can profit off of it. So the short seller I look at as my enemy, but if you're going in competition, the more you know about your enemy, the better chance you are and equipped to beat them.
When you're a long seller,
Yep.
a long owner,
Yep.
you can only lose the amount of money that you put in the stock.
Yes.
The loss and short selling is infinite.
Yes.
That stock, in the time that you promised to buy it and give it back to somebody, they can cure cancer. And then
Yes.
you got to pay $1 million a share,
Yep.
and you owe that person that bought your contract, you owe them.
Yep.
If it was 100 shares, you got to provide 100
Yes.
shares.
And if not, they'll be coming after your house, they'll come off there, like everything you owe, they will get you.
So, sure.
Yeah, I don't agree with that at all. Yeah.
Don't just take that away from your.
Yes.
From your thing.
To be real, only people I know that short have over $50,000 that they're trading. I don't know anybody that's under 50K that's shorting on a consistent basis, because the potential for risk of the loss is kind of crazy. I do not short at all. I just kind of am aware of those guys. So we talked about the different types of trading. Next, we'll get into market cap. So the market capitalization. Oh, we're gonna have another class all on that, because it's so complex to it. I wouldn't be able to get the basic stuff and get that. Like, what I try to do is, one thing I learned, you can only digest so much of this at one time. If you try to take it all in at once, it's overwhelming. So like literally I have 4 more things I'm gonna go through. And then after that, we can just chat. But I don't advise you like trying to learn it all in one time. I advise you like digesting what we went through today, maybe go learn a little about it over the next week. Then when we come back next week and you have a little better understanding of that, get something else in there, because like if I give you everything today, you're gonna leave with nothing. Realistically, if you can just leave with the understanding of one thing, that's better than leaving with, oh my goodness, I'm never gonna get to the market. This is madness. I can't even believe all the stuff this guy just came and told me. So I try to break it down. And actually, you guys are my second group. Some of the people that we have online, you guys were with me the first time. I cut it a little shorter in each session, because I think the first time I did it, I gave too much information all at once. And it was kind of like an information overload for people. So now market capitalization, which is pretty much the amount that company is worth. So the amount of shares that is out there versus the price that it is what its total worth is. There's small caps, mid caps, and large cap companies. I really only mess with small cap. What I would consider small would be a company that's market cap is under $2 billion. So I only trade companies under $2 billion, which would be considered small cap. The one thing about the market is, like, the reason why I enjoy it and I love it so much is, me growing up, I didn't come from much. and I didn't know what money was. I thought like when I was younger, if I get a job where I'm making $20 an hour, I'm fine. And then when I got older, got to college, I realized, yeah, right, if you only make $20 an hour, you're going to struggle in life. This market gave me a concept for what is really out there, and it kind of gave me a hunger to reach for different things. So just seeing some of the money that was out there, seeing these filings and seeing what they make, it gave me a better idea of understanding of money that was out in this world, because before I had no clue really what was out there. So small cap would be under 2 billion, mid would be 2 billion to 10 billion, and over 10 billion would be large. Your large caps are like Amazon, who you're talking about, is like around 1,600 and something a share. Those are the big boys. Those are the very large cap stocks. I only mess with small cap, and penny stocks mainly is my main thing. I will invest in some other things, but I mainly invest in penny. One thing about penny's not like only 5-cent stocks, 6-cent stocks, 7-cent stocks. Anything under $10 is technically considered a penny stock in the trading world. Yes.
Can I ask you? So this is a trading course?
Yeah, it's an introduction to the stock market course.
Introduction to the stock market.
Yes. Yep.
My question to you is, when you're successful in your trading,
yes.
Okay, and then you're looking, I imagine that your goal would be to have CDs, a stock portfolio, and then still some money for trading. But I don't think you mean that if you turn 1,000 into 10,000 and then 10,000 into 15,000, that you would use that whole 15,000 to continue trading, trying to turn.
No, trading isn't.
You would buy maybe 100 shares of Pfizer stock and put that away, and maybe a CD, and then have 3,000 that you're doing to trade.
Yes, that is yes.
But I'm not hearing that, so I just want to make sure.
Oh yeah.
Make sure that you're not saying that you would take your money and get trading in penny stocks.
What I will say is, like as we get deep, well, I'm not a financial advisor, so I don't want anybody to leave here and put all their money up. What I will say is I have a system where I rank things on a 5-star basis, and it doesn't happen often, but when things hit my 5-star rating, I do go large, I go heavy on things. So I will say that, but as far as my consistent day-to-day, no, it is not everything, all the assets that I have, not all of my work is involved in it. I don't, on a consistent basis, put over 1% of what my worth is ever that I will ever risk that. It's always 1%. So if I was worth $100, I would trade with $1 a day would be my risk kind of there. But I go against that sometimes with certain situations, but that's just a risk that I am willing to take, and I don't suggest anybody else jumping into that kind of risk. That's something that you personally would have to be comfortable with, and I am, because I'm very confident in myself. So there's certain times that I do go like that, but it's not consistently. No. Sounds good? So when we talked about the different market caps, and all of this might sound crazy. Once I get through this stuff, and like when we get to the end of class, there's literally, and if my internet's strong enough, there's like, you can't really trade stocks without having a stock screener, and you can literally put in the certain criteria you're looking for to narrow down all of this stuff. Once you see the stock screener and use it, all of this gets much easier. So right now, like, it may seem like a lot, but just listen to it and just kind of go with it. So now penny stocks under $10 is kind of things I'm into. You also can get dividend stocks. Now, penny stocks, these stock companies, they have to report earnings 4 times a year. A good company, a mid to large cap company, is either making money or losing money, but it's usually a good business. They're trying to stay in business. These penny stocks are terrible companies. None of them are good. There is not any of them. The only penny stock that I personally know of that went from in the pennies and went above $10 is True Religion Jeans. That kind of blew up in the urban market and kind of went from 14 cents to now it's like, I think, $14. There's millions of stocks that have been out there. Majority of them, that does not happen to. So the world that I'm in and what I do, I fully understand. Anything that is under that $2 billion, I look at as a terrible company. I'm not at all ever like messing with these companies, investing, thinking that they are good. If I was ever to invest my money in something, I would look towards the larger cap, because those companies actually are trying to make money in their business with what they do. Some of these other companies are only in the market to raise money, then offer an IPO, which we'll get into later, and then leave everybody who bought into it holding the bag and losing a lot of money. So all of these small caps are terrible companies. They're not good. If you understand that from the beginning, it makes it much easier going into it, and you not having that emotional attachment to think, oh, this 1 cent stock is going to make it to $2. It's not going to happen. The things that I try to look for, if that 1 cent stock can make it to 2 cents, that's all we really need that stock to do, and things of that nature though. So we talked about the different kinds of stock. Now volume, which is how many shares are being bought or sold of a business. Volume is one thing that makes these stocks move. So that's the amount of shares being bought or sold for a business. I would not advise looking at any stocks that don't at least trade 100,000 share volume on a day. Things that don't at least trade a minimum of 100K aren't really that liquid, so the price isn't moving that much. Understanding volume is very important with these penny stocks, because like some people, like when I first got involved, I didn't look into much. I just was like, you know what, I'm looking through some stocks. I see one that's 25 cents, and I just bought it and just kind of see what happened. And I would always lose money. As I started to learn about volume, was one of the first things I learned about. The companies I was buying was having 100, 500, maybe. Some of them sometimes will have as little as 50 in a day. Anything that's not moving at least that 100,000, that price does not move, especially in the penny stock world. So if you go to look at anything after this, I would advise making our search at a minimum 100,000 kind of with volume. Now, when we're gonna have a class with chart reading, where on the chart you can kind of see, like when you're looking at a chart, there's a zigzag part at the top that controls price, and below it there's kind of a bar chart that controls volume. We're gonna actually have a class where we pull it up, we look at it together. I'm not gonna get into it today, because if I try to explain it without you physically seeing it, every single one of you guys out here is gonna think of it as a different way, and it's probably none of us are gonna be on the same exact page. But just know volume is one thing that makes price move. If you look at anything after this class, learn about volume. That's the biggest thing I would say. So if you're new to it and you're worried about the stock market, I would just Google stock market volume. Just learn about volume to it. Understanding that is very important. One other thing is that if anybody does look at a stock after today, look for volume and look for the range. The range is a basis from the lowest and the highest that stock has been in a 52-week span. So range and volume, if anybody is going to look at stocks, is two things that I would advise you to check out if you are brand new. After this class, I would advise nobody risking their own money. If anybody really wanted to give it a shot, at the end, I'm gonna tell you some ways you can paper trade. So there's different places you can go to, apps you can download, use fake money to trade with. It's best to learn that way rather than throwing your hard-earned money in there without fully understanding what it is and somebody taking it from you. Yes.
Even if you trade 500 shares of a penny stock and it goes from 1 cent to 2 cents, it's $4.95 to do the trade. So it takes 500.
Well, yes, and that when we talk about brokers, there's free brokers out there and there's commission brokers out there. To be real, like, and we'll get into this later, if you're not at least putting like $500 onto a trade, I wouldn't advise going through a paid broker, because commission and the percentages they take off will crush you. Like a TD Ameritrade is like a $6.95 each way, so it's about $14 a trade. If you're making a $100 trade and you're spending $14 just on your commission, you already eliminated that risk factor of not risking more than 1%, and you're spending that on commission. So I do not advise going through paid brokers unless you are over 500. I do not advise anybody within your first year of learning the market to risk not even 1 penny. I would say paper trade. And then another thing I would say is if you really think you understand the market, put $10 in like a Robinhood, which is a free broker, and turn that into $15. It's much harder than you really realize though. So I would not advise, truthfully, I wouldn't want any of you guys trading, but if somebody has to have the dire need to do it, I would not say put over $10 in it. if any of you guys put $10 in and lose it, I'll reimburse you. That's something I can cover. I cannot cover you if you go in there and throw a stack or a couple $1,000s and blow that. But I wouldn't advise, like, just for myself, I really didn't start becoming consistently profitable until about 9 months into learning the market. And literally, like, I get up at 4:30 in the morning. I'm reading things. I'm checking things. I went through which, once I finish the recording, I'll tell you the courses I went through for different people. But I put like 500-600 hours into this thing before I actually started to click. And now I started to be consistent. So, like, if you're in that beginning stage, it takes a lot of time to understand. The one way that I like to look at the market is, like, I was working one job and then working a part-time job where I wasn't getting paid as much as I was my full-time job. I was just there doing it for the money. I realized that learning this market and slowly getting involved with it is a better part-time job than any part-time job I ever had. And as I continue to progress and progress and progress, eventually, as I get towards retirement or later, I think I want to be able to control my own money. So I'm in this for the long haul. Anybody that does anything with me, I just ask that you aren't coming in with a mindset like, I want to quickly make money. I want to quickly go flip this, because I can't teach you how to do that. I can teach you a process to slowly learn this. If you're willing, like, literally, I probably take 20 minutes out of my day daily now to fully just put all my trades together. And on average, I take my profits between 3% and 20% on a consistent basis. So I'm always kind of consistently doing that, and it's 20 minutes out of my day, if that, though. But in the beginning stage, I couldn't just go for it. When I first learned about it, 20 minutes a day and do it. It took me hours of just learning it and reading books and all of this stuff. In 10 minutes, I'll start to share, like, the books that I've read, the resources that I have used. Just, I can't kind of put anybody's name on there because I'm kind of recording what I'm doing now. So we talked about volume and range. The last thing that we're going to talk about for the video today is volatility. And that is just kind of how much that price moves in a given trading session. So how fast that price can move. The penny stock game is very volatile. They move very quick. The large cap stocks move very slow. An example of that would be, there have been penny stocks that have at 1 minute been at, say, 45 cents at 10 a.m. and by 11 it is at $1.05, and by 12 it is at 30 cents. So in the penny stock game, those are moves that can happen. You tend to not see that large of volatility in the bigger market companies. Yes.
In other words, it doesn't take many, because of the volume, it doesn't take many people to move the market.
Mm-hmm.
And a small number of people can actually move the market, read it right.
Yes.
So you have to be very careful that you're not the last guy.
Yes. Yep. And what we'll talk about later, like yes. Well, it could be in times. If you like if you take what I taught you, what we talked about today, and you think that you understand what makes these move, yes, it's crazy. When you will never understand it. But in the future, we're going to talk about shares outstanding, which is the total amount of shares that are out there available to be traded. We're also going to the total amount of shares that are out there that somebody may hold. And then we'll talk about shares afloat, which are the actual amount of stock shares that can be traded in that day. Once you learn those numbers, you start to understand how they move. Like, what I look for, like, to sum it up very quick, I look for high volume, low float. High volume, low float. So something that's trading a lot of shares in a day, so say over 100,000, and a float, which is how many shares are out there available to be traded, under 20 million, what I look for, though. Because some of these companies sometimes, like, if the float, say, if you find, like, there's low floaters that I always watch, I'll tell you about one shortly, but say if I have a company that has 1 million float, and say that company trades 5 million shares that day, that company traded its entire worth 5 different times around the world in that day. That can create a huge amount of flow, to whereas like Amazon or one of those, their float will be like 300 billion out there, to where it's very hard to make that move. But these penny stocks, some of them are like in the 500,000, and if it's trading over 100,000, over 500,000, it's trading its entire worth of that company in that session. That's what causes large volatility. Question? Yes.
As a trader,
yep,
you might be doing 1 or 2 trades a day, several days a week maybe. At the end of the year, there's a tax liability. You have to have records. How do you set up the records so that you know where you stand after?
That's a great question.
And what do you do? What are your recommendations for someone that wants to trade about making sure that, if it's all going to be short-term gains with ordinary income rates, you're not going to hold it for a year or day to qualify for the lower and long-term rates. How do you get your record keeping straight? Not only so that you can satisfy the tax return, but make sure that you're putting aside your gain a bit, so that if you're still risking a lot of your money in the market,
yeah,
and continuing trades, and if you already owe 3, 5, 8, 10,000 to the IRS when the time comes for your tax return, then you put yours on that side.
Yes. I'm gonna fully. Yeah, hold on. Let me just close out here, and then I'm gonna get to that. But thank you everybody for checking us today. We will be back next Friday, the same exact time. Email me, text me if you missed anything. I am available to come on live with anybody later. You'll get an email from me. I appreciate it and love y'all. Y'all have a good time. Hold on. All right, so now, let me just.
What was your first question?
Yeah, because that one,